little mix-up, so you didn't get to hear much of the song there, more of the introduction. But we've played it before. I'm sure we'll play it again. I'd like to welcome everybody this week. We're live June 11th, 2006. This is a live public access television program that allows the atheist community of Austin to interact with the public and for you to call in and ask us questions, discuss issues, whatever. The audio from this broadcast is available on the website and also available via podcast. And that's been drawing in a lot more listeners. We appreciate it. Help spread the word and let your friends know if you think they might be interested in the show. Thanks all you for listening. We're sponsored by the Atheist Community of Austin, a nonprofit educational organization promoting positive atheism and the separation of church and state. We have weekly meetings at Romeo's on Barton Springs every Sunday at 11:30, except for the third Sunday of the month when we host a lecture series at the Austin History Center, located at the corner of 9th and Guadalupe. In addition to this program, the ACA also sponsors a bi-weekly internet audio program called The Non-Profits. That's PROPHETS. It's hosted by Jeff D., co-hosted by Dennis Lubay, features Russell Glasser and myself. We'll be live again this Saturday, June 17th. For more information, you can visit nonprofitsradio.com or the atheist-community.org website. It has a link as well to the radio program. Upcoming this next Sunday will be the third Sunday. We'll be having the lecture series, and that lecture will be Thomas Van Oort, who was famous for the Ten Commandments display case in front of the steps of the Texas Capitol here. So that'll be great. Pass the word around. Make sure everybody comes out and gets in on that lecture, and we'll have future lectures coming for you every month on the third week. In addition to those events, the ACA also sponsors a number of social events, including happy hours. Currently, that's taking place at NITFAS on Anderson near 183 and I-35. Every Thursday at 7:30, you can come on down, have some chips and salsa or a meal if you like, a few drinks, and talk to and meet some of the folks in the organization. And the cast and behind-the-scenes crew of this program have been going to Threadgills every week. That's on Riverside, and the show's over at 6 o'clock. We normally get there between 6:30, 6:45. It's a chance for any atheist or atheist-friendly people to come on down, meet ACA members, see some of the people who do the work behind the scenes to make the show go on. And anybody who was planning to come down to preach or proselytize, don't do that. We'll have the number up for you very shortly, and you can call in and talk to us on any number of issues. Among the other events, yesterday we went, the ACA had a booth set up at the the Texas Gay Pride Festival at Waterloo Park. Yep.
I thought that was today.
Nope, it was yesterday. We were there. The festival ran from noon to about 8 o'clock. We had a booth set up. We had a lot of good, nice people come by. Passed out a few flyers, talked about why atheists have an interest in gay rights. And without going into great detail on that, we covered it in depth on last week's program, which you can get the audio portion in the podcast or at the website. And we had a really good time. It was really productive. We're looking forward to doing more things out and about in the community and inviting more people to help out behind the scenes. We're always looking for people to lend a hand on our various programs and activist activities. For anybody who doesn't manage to get through on the telephone today, or if you don't want to, you can email tv@atheist-community.org. You can send questions, feedback, suggestions, whatever you want to that list. It goes to all the cast and crew of the show. We try to answer as many as we possibly can, but we can't promise to get to all of them. And the last thing is with regard to calls, we'll be opening it up to calls shortly, and you're free to talk about the subject at hand or ask whatever question or subject you want to talk about. There are a few things. We're trying to minimize the amount of time that some people stay on hold because we've only got 3 active lines, and with a number of callers, that can get blocked up. So if you call and ask a question that is addressed on the frequently asked questions page of the ACA website, or one we've already addressed in the show or many times, what we'll probably do is give you a short answer and direct you to that. Unless you happen to have a new take or a new spin and a difficult question, some kind of poser for us to, a challenge for us to answer, and then we'll try and hit that a little harder. But joining me this week is Keryn Glasser. Welcome back. How you doing?
I'm doing all right. Okay, I guess it's been about a month since I've been on the show, so it's good to be back. My topic today, I'm pretty much ready to just jump right into callers whenever somebody wants to call and ask me a question, but the topic I chose to talk about today was people who hate people, because just feel, and I think I talked about this a little bit last month when I was on, but it feels a little bit like every day there's a more and more growing culture of fear in our country, and people are using religion and using ignorance and using intolerance as much as they can to either promote their own position or step on other people. I see this in many different ways in my life, and it's just dizzying. I mentioned last month that I recently moved into a new house, and I have one neighbor in particular who's very, very, very Christian. And I was talking to my dad. Some of you know of my dad. He is a physicist in Los Alamos and has been on the show in the past, a while back, and has done lectures at the Los Alamos High School for the humanities class on atheism for something like 20 years. I was talking to my dad about it because I haven't really informed my neighbors that I am an atheist. I get the impression from them that if, they know that I'm Jewish, but I get the impression that if they knew I was also an atheist, it would create a big wall between us, and being that I just bought this house and I plan to live there for a long, long time, I'm not really ready to make enemies with any of my neighbors yet. And it's kind of sad that it has to resort to that, but I'm trying to be very proactive in letting her know all the good things there are about me, because I happen to know I'm a very, very decent person, and I work really hard to, be kind to others and reach out to others and, be open and accepting of people. And when I was talking to my dad on the phone about it, he got really upset and gave me a pep talk about how I shouldn't feel ashamed of who I am and what I believe, and I should feel that I have just as much right to believe what I believe as she has to believe what she believes, and if she expects me to accept her, then she should also accept me. And I said, unless of course you believe what she believes, in which case that's not true.
Yeah, it might even be the case, she knows you're Jewish. If she were now to find out you're an atheist, based on how little people understand a lot of these things, she may think you just outright lied to her before. And then you have to go through the rigmarole of explaining,
She's not hugely a big fan of the fact that I'm Jewish either. Yeah. Although she is one of those Christians who practices things like she observes Passover and she practices kashrut and it's strange. I know there's very different ways of observing Christianity, and of course this show's not all about Christianity. It's about theism in general. And on that note, I also had, in terms of our culture of fear and our culture of intolerance, I also had an interesting moment this week when somebody I knew who was an atheist basically said to me the most prejudiced words I've ever heard them say, which is that she basically feels that every older male Christian is a potential child molester, which is a huge spin.
Wow.
On any version of that statement I've ever heard in the past.
We talked last week on the nonprofit show, we talked a little bit about specifically incidents of the priesthood and Protestant ministers involved in, child molestation and stuff. And the numbers even among them aren't, that high. I mean, what basis was there for every older Christian male being?
I think it's just a product of the culture of fear that we're living in now. That you do see all these stories about the priests, abusing their choir boys and about bishops and whoever is in a position in the church, or whoever feels strongly. You hear these stories in the news. They come up in the news, and certainly we report these things a lot on our TV show and radio show when we hear about them. And I think it's just another example of taking these things and just going on the slippery slope with them and,
Yeah.
taking them a bit too far. So now I'm seeing things from both angles, where people, of course, are always accusing atheists of being, the reason God is punishing this country, and then, throwing out phrases like there are no atheists in foxholes. And then atheists, getting so immersed in this culture of oppression that all of a sudden they think that anybody that's a Christian is potentially a child molester or a criminal or a murderer of some sort, or approves of some sort of, violence in the name of God, or something like that.
Yeah,
so,
I have a hard time going that way. We've even tried on the show several times to distinguish, yesterday at the Gay Pride Festival, for example, there were a number of Unitarian and even liberal Baptist churches and stuff who were in attendance offering support. So, there are a number of, liberal Christians who are reasonable on social issues and tend to view things from a more secular perspective. Mm-hmm. Still think they're wrong about the whole God thing, but I can hang out with them at least.
It's become such a culture in our economy also that, it's become a huge, huge part of politics. And, another thing my dad called me up and told me about is that the Republican Party has sort of gone so overboard in going so far right-wing and so far religiously fanatic that there's a bunch of Republican politicians, I think he said specifically in Kentucky, who are now switching their titles to Democrat, sort of because they really just feel that the Republican Party has gone too far with this whole Christianity thing. I am very, very pleased about that recent vote to not have an amendment banning gay marriage, which, we talk about on our show sometimes, because typically the only strong arguments there are why gay marriage should be illegal is because of religious arguments. And since we're atheists, so since we're atheists, well, one reason we set up a booth at the Gay Pride Festival is because we want to support that. We don't feel that people's religions should be enforcing their values on individual people's lives, that individuals should have control over their own lives. And again, the number's up here on the screen, so feel free to call in and ask me questions or give me feedback.
You were talking about the culture of fear, and, it was just this week that I was having a similar discussion about, it started as somebody was asking why I was going to the Gay Rights Festival and everything else, and I said, from my point of view, religious belief, ignorance, and fear are the three most threatening and dangerous things in our society. And while I don't mind that somebody can be of a religious mindset and have a particular religious belief and also be reasonable, I think in many cases they seem to be the exception. That the type of beliefs one has to maintain in a religious view are often based on voluntary ignorance or an unwillingness to accept scientific evidence and rational thought. You've compartmentalized your religion and kept it safe while you may think rationally in other areas. But yeah, ignorance and fear, and I don't know how to conquer the fear part, but conquering the ignorance part is probably what we're all about. Doing this show every week, and many of us have worked towards, improving public education, limiting, proselytizing in public schools and Bible courses that are just absurd, and opening people's minds to science and critical thought to kind of banish as much ignorance as we can. It's fear that we really have to start figuring out a way to work.
I have a quote. People who know me real well know that I'm real big on quotes. I have a quote wall in my house. I always have. I have a quote wall in my office at work. And I have a quote that I just haven't looked at it in a really long time. It's a really good one, and it has something to do with that fear basically, all fear basically comes from ignorance. And the way to treat fear and hatred and intolerance is to educate people, And in the case of my neighbor, it's such a touchy situation because, being that we both own the houses we live in, we're both going to be there for, X number of years. And so I don't want to have to pretend I'm somebody I'm not, because I don't believe in that. And I guess my strategy right now is just to educate her as much as I can And then hopefully once she gets to a point where she feels comfortable enough that she knows who I am and what I'm about enough, then I can kind of ease into that part. And oh, by the way, a lot of what I believe and why I am the kind of person that I am is because I don't believe in God, Yeah. I'm the kind of person that if I see problems going on in the world, things that are bad in the world, I don't believe that you can sit back and pray for somebody else to make it better. I think you have to stand up and be proactive and do something about it yourself. And it's exhausting. It's today.
Depending on your particular view of Christianity, it may be hypocritical to pray for God to end suffering, because there's a very real sentiment within Christianity, a dogmatic viewpoint that, yeah, God is. You're supposed to praise God in all things, and if He sends terrible things your way, He's God, and He can do that, and you're supposed to be thanking Him and praising Him for that, and whatever benefit you may get out of it. But it may actually be sacrilegious to ask God to change the course of His plan to meet your plan or better you.
Yeah, and the catch in this situation with my neighbor is that she does have a 15-year-old daughter who does not believe what her mother believes, and I've been thrown in this loop, and being who I am, her daughter feels very comfortable coming over to my house and being herself around me, and being able to a certain amount to vent around me. She's sort of gotten to the point where she now likes to come over and say, let me tell you about the crazy religious thing my mother did this time. She knows that I do this show, and she likes to say, let me give you some ammo for your show today. And it's catchy because her mother's starting to catch on that her daughter opens up to me in ways that she doesn't open up to her mother. And she's turning this around to say, oh, I think actually, Keryn is influencing you, and I don't want Keryn to influence you. I want you to, pay attention to me, your mother. And whereas in reality, she's 15 years old, and at 15, most kids have pretty much made up their mind about who they are. And it's not a really, and she tells me she said this to her mother, nobody can influence me if I don't want them to, not even you, Mom. It's just that, I can, encourage her in a way that her mother's not willing to. And the way this came up is actually this girl became a vegetarian shortly after meeting me. And her mother is aware that I'm a vegan, and so her mother thinks it's my fault. So in those ways, her mother's aware that I am influencing, or her mother has decided that I'm influencing her daughter in some ways, not necessarily the religious parts yet, but I can see that is a growing threat.
Yeah, and it may, kids may get their own minds, but it may be that you are acting as an influence. It's whether or not you're acting as a negative influence. Mm-hmm. And boy, when you talk about minors, that's kind of a fine line, and there's potential trouble. So
it's tricky. I would say the only way that I'm influencing her is that I am giving her that venue and that outlet that she can, explore what she has made up her mind she wants to explore. Whereas that might be withheld from her under her mother's roof. She tells me that her mother, she has sought out books on alternative viewpoints in the past, and when her mother discovered them, she actually burned them. But in my house, her mother's not coming over and burning those books. And I don't want to meddle necessarily. In some ways I do, because I think this girl has a lot of potential and she's very smart, and I think children she should be allowed to explore. But on the other hand, she's not my daughter. I don't know, it's tricky and it's frustrating, and I just wish that people weren't so intolerant of other people, I just wish that people weren't so afraid of other people, and weren't so afraid of letting children explore different philosophies about the world, and letting children become friends with people of different viewpoints, and of people becoming friends with people of different viewpoints.
Yeah, that's, we've been talking about a number of things. I had a discussion with Don the other day, kind of briefly, about public education. And I had talked about before the Texas Freedom Network had done a review on this particular Bible course that they're trying to adopt in a number of schools. But we were talking about how there are specific rules as to what you can and can't teach in public schools. You can't teach creationism as science because it's religion. You can't teach, intelligent design, this particular new spin on creationism, because it's not science. But there's this perception that atheists are trying to, let's get, we view religious symbols, the Ten Commandments monuments, as a violation of the First Amendment, and the one nation under God, and in the pledge, and in God we trust on the money. You see a lot of this, and people immediately think, atheists just want to remove everything that's God or godlike or about God or whatever from every aspect of life. And no, that's not remotely true. One of the things that I've been a big supporter of is comparative religion classes in public schools. As long as they're done from a secular perspective, whether you're not biased or proselytizing towards one religion or one type of religion, if you're giving them a view of, here's the history of what people have believed, here's what people believe in different cultures around the world today, all that does is promote an understanding that allows people to be tolerant and work in cooperation, where you've eliminated that ignorance portion, you've alleviated some of that fear, and now the Baptist and the Jehovah's Witness and the Hindu can actually sit down and accomplish something together without worrying about whose beliefs are right or wrong. Because while I spend a great deal of time focused on philosophical studies and theological studies, there's a great big world out there that we need to make progress on. There are huge social issues that we have to work towards correcting. And one of the things that we have to do is build this system of cooperation and tolerance among all people, regardless of what their beliefs are. The problem is that some people, while they are willing to work cooperatively in it and try to understand other people, they still want to legislate based on their own religious opinions. And as long as you want to keep trying to enforce your religious opinions on everybody else in the world, you're fighting against any chance we have of working together towards bigger goals.
The problem is doctrines that basically teach. I'm just gonna beat this phrase to death. A culture of fear. I mean, you can be as diplomatic as you want to be, trying to get together and say, all right, let's put our personal differences aside and let's just try and all get along. That's all I want. I want everybody to get along, and I feel like I'm the only one. Not the only one, but I'm just, like one of these invisible people here that's sitting here screaming and tearing my hair out, just trying to make people get along. But it's very difficult to do when you're saying, when you're talking to someone that, as much as they want to put their personal differences aside, deep down they think you're going to hell. And that is going to put a huge block on any peaceful measures we're going to have. Is when the person that you're trying to cooperate with and you're trying to negotiate with, really at the root of what they believe in, believes that you are going to hell. Which, funny story, actually, this week I had the pleasure of seeing two popular religious movies out in the theaters these days, The Omen and The Da Vinci Code. And both movies I wanted to invite my niece, who wanted to invite my neighbor's daughter. And I was like, oh, her mother would kill me.
I wonder which one her mom would object to more.
These are not the kind of movies her mother would approve of. And, at one point I was just like, she was like, well, we'll just tell her that we're going to see Over the Hedge. And I was like, I'll see if she was home. And the whole time I was walking across the street, I was like, I'm such a bad influence. I'm such a bad influence. I'm going straight to hell. I'm going straight to... Wait, I don't believe in hell. But if there was a hell, I would be going straight there. I'm such a bad influence. And she didn't end up coming with us to either one. But when I told her this story, she said, those are the two movies I really want to see.
I'm not as keen on the remake of The Omen, but...
Oh my God, it was so much gorier than the original.
Really?
It was way more disturbing than the original.
The original had the most disturbing scene I think I've ever seen,
really?
a sheet of glass slides off the back of a panel truck and the head is chopped off.
For some reason, that part in the movie, when I saw the original with my roommate, made us crack up. We found it hysterical. Something about it was just one of those, like, horror movies that's so over the top that it's funny, even though it's not intended to be funny, or something. I called my roommate and I talked to her about this. Ooh, yeah, didn't make me laugh in this movie. Yeah, nothing about this movie made me laugh, except for the part where I actually screamed and jumped on my neighbor, the one that was a complete stranger, rather than the one over here that I actually went to the movie with. So, yeah, creepy movie.
All right, we don't want any calls asking what theater Keryn goes to. Hey, you want to take a call from this? We've got some
strange
weird
random person on the line.
Caller, are you there?
Yes.
You don't sound like Russell.
You don't sound like Russell.
This is Jenny.
Hey, Jenny.
Okay, back to your neighbor. Keryn, I just have to say you shouldn't really feel too guilty about any influence that you have over your neighbor's daughter, because when my daughter was over at their house, my daughter was finding herself in the middle of leading prayer at dinner and reading Bible verses. I mean, come on. You're not doing anything that I would consider disrespectful, but just for her parents to just assume that my daughter is interested in that, and I don't know, it kind of rubs me the wrong way, in a sense that they are so overprotective of her and don't want anything that influence their daughter, yet they have no qualms about doing anything that would influence my daughter. Not that I'm worried that they would influence my daughter, because my daughter's pretty well set in her belief system, and even if she did want to believe the way they do, that's fine. I don't care, as long as she's happy and healthy and leading a productive life, fine. But it's just such a double standard, and that's just completely not going to get anybody anywhere, as long as it's always a double standard. And what you say about, deep down these people think that we're going to hell, well, you're right, because of that, and because they are so convinced that they are right and nobody else could possibly be right. There is a different mindset and a block there that you're having to deal with. So that's all I wanted to say.
And it's not just they think you're going to hell. In most of these, you are inferior.
Oh, yeah.
You are flawed in some fundamental way. It's not just, I think you're wrong. It's you are flawed in some fundamental way. And when you listen to like Ray Comfort on The Way of the Master, where he makes arguments that are flat out insulting. First of all, he doesn't think that atheists exist, and he's written a book that says God doesn't believe in atheists. And it's because he spins this strong atheist, you must be omniscient. And he says things like agnostics are atheists who realize they don't know everything, and all of these other things. And all it does is represent that he doesn't understand what it is that he's talking about. And he's going for these one-liner, soundbite, cute little slogans.
Right, things sound good.
Yeah, and his whole banana argument, which he ended up conceding on Hellbound LE, it's just, I don't know, it's baffling to me that, they're free to spin it as if atheists are the arrogant intellectuals who are looking down on the world and, you stupid little religious believer. When actually, it's not
really
that way at all.
Around.
There are plenty of really intelligent, smart, wise people who have religious beliefs. And I don't think they're stupid. I just think they're wrong.
Exactly.
And that's, I'm entitled.
And you can say that until you're blue in the face, and it will never get across.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because we'll always be perceived as someone who's attacking them because we think they're wrong. I mean, why is it that people automatically presume that when you tell them they're wrong about something, that you don't like them or don't respect them?
Yeah, it's mostly because we're talking about core beliefs, and they can't separate themselves from their beliefs. So, like, for instance, if I attack the idea that Jesus ever existed, for example, I'm not attacking an idea. In my mind, I'm attacking an idea or a claim, and in their mind, I'm attacking them personally, because this is so crucial.
That's so not what it is about, and that is sad.
And the interesting thing is, me and my brother Russell and your daughter Samantha, we come from a unique vantage point that a lot of atheists don't, is that we were raised atheists. And we were raised by a family that taught us to be proud of skepticism, to be to be taught that skepticism is a virtue and that we should all question reality and we should all question authority and we should all, seek out the truth and seek out logic and argue with everything, and be loud and proud and outspoken. I mean, I'm on TV, but I happen to know that out where I live, they don't get this public access channel, and I might not be so comfortable talking about this on the air if they did.
Because you have to live across the street from that person.
Samantha, is also one of these she doesn't hide the fact that she's an atheist, but she also hasn't told this particular neighbor's parents.
I have actually cautioned her not to let this girl's parents know that she doesn't believe in God, because it will ruin a good friendship.
Exactly.
These parents will make it impossible for these girls to be friends.
And that is so unbelievably unfair that one person has to hide who they really are in order to have a friendship with another person who would completely accept that.
It is
strictly
outrageous.
Because their parents are absurd.
It is outrageous.
It reminds me that when I was under 5 years old, growing up in Auburn, Alabama, which is, a very strong Bible belt, I was too young to remember this, but I've been told stories that me and my brother was spit upon in school because he was an atheist, and that we both had friends whose parents wouldn't let them play with us because either because we were Jewish or because we were atheists. And it's very saddening and very disheartening that 20 years later, you're
in the same boat.
I'm still in the same boat.
Yeah, I know it.
We haven't made any progress.
It's crappy, but that's the reality, and we just have to do the best we can with what we've got.
Yeah.
Definitely.
All right, well, I'll see you guys after the show at dinner.
Thank you for calling in.
Okay, Jane.
Bye.
Samantha did tell me that she was very grateful for those years that she was sent to Sunday school when she was asked to say grace at dinner.
It's like, you stowed some crib notes away from long ago, and now they've come in handy.
Lord bless.
I knew somebody someday would ask me what the capital of Argentina was. Is it James?
Yeah, it's James.
How you doing, James?
Not too good.
Not too good? What's wrong?
Because I don't agree with y'all.
Okay. That's right. Tell us more.
For one thing, God is very real. Hell is very real.
Have you got your TV turned up? Because I'm getting a little bit of an echo.
Okay, hold on.
Or maybe our speaker's just too loud. Go ahead.
I'm saying God is real and hell is very real. Now, don't get me wrong now. You're free to believe what you want to believe.
Now, do you believe that God is real and hell is real, or do you know? You know. So you're a Gnostic theist.
How do you know?
Why do you know?
How do you know?
Because he exists in my life. I know he's real.
So by direct divine implantation of the idea into your brain, you know.
No, it's not. It's not an idea that's been put in my head. I know this for real. Everybody who has been touched, has been healed.
Healed.
Knows God.
Can I ask you a quick question about healing? Do you believe that, if you pray for somebody and you're faithful and believe that God will heal them no matter what?
I believe it wholeheartedly.
Then why won't God heal amputees?
Have we healed what?
Amputees, people who have lost limb. In the entire history of the world, there's no documented evidence of anybody being prayed for and spontaneously regenerating a limb that has been lopped off. You hear claims about God healing, cancer, but we know that cancer can often go into remission on its own. And a number of other illnesses. I've got a headache and I took an aspirin and prayed and God took away my headache. But if prayer works, why won't God heal amputees? Or Down syndrome children, or any number of other things which would ordinarily be considered completely impossible? Why don't we see that happen?
Yeah, that's the point. God heals all. God he'll heal amputees. He'll heal cancer. Can
you provide a single instance of God healing an amputee?
No, I don't know.
Then how can you claim that it's true?
I'll take me for instance.
So basically what you're saying is you believe this to be true despite the fact that you have no evidence to support that.
No, I'm evidence.
Your evidence? You are an amputee and God has healed you?
I'm evidence, yes.
You used to be an amputee.
My daughter's evidence. Everybody I know there's evidence. I have seen people stronger. I have seen best friends.
Okay, let me ask you a question. I understand that I want to say that you believe that God is real, but you're telling me that you know that God is real. Either way, you're telling us what we believe is wrong. Being that you disagree with us, do you think less of us?
Do I think less of you?
Yes.
Like, no, I don't think that's, what I'm trying to say is, I'm trying to inform you that all that you believe, I don't against you, I will still come up to you, shake your hand, how you doing, all like that. I will do that. But I'm trying to say to you, if you believe what you believe, if you believe all this you believe, there's no God, there's no hell, nothing. You get all the way when the world ends and come to find out there is a God, and would you want to be on the right side of God instead of the left side?
I would like to think that if there was a God and he really was as benevolent as people say, that he would be able to understand that the reason I didn't believe in him was because he did not give me enough compelling evidence to believe in him. But despite that, I still lived my life as a good person. I still practiced charity and do volunteer work and help other people's lives. No. And therefore, I would still be on his good side anyway.
What if when you die you find out that Christianity was wrong and the Hindus were right? No, I mean, it's the exact same position that you're asking us about. You are making this thing that if I die and find out that the Christian God was true, that all of a sudden I'm screwed because I didn't believe. But the same is true if some other idea of God is true, or if the idea that no God is true. You're using something called Pascal's wager, and it's so fundamentally flawed because just like if I die and the Christian God is true, I suppose I have to face some sort of judgment. I'd stand up there as a man and say I was wrong and then start asking questions because he's got a lot to answer for if there is any God. In your case, if you die and your idea of God is wrong but somebody else is in, then you're in exactly the same boat that I'm in.
No, what I'm saying, brother, is like this. That's what I'm saying. It's like that old saying, my way, highway.
Yeah?
It's either God's way or no.
Which God?
The only one true God.
According to you, the only one true God, but there are many people who make all kinds of claims about who the one true God is. Well, I have no way of telling if any of them are correct. But I can't, and they can't all be correct, but they can all be wrong.
I'm assuming you read the Bible, right?
Yeah, lots of times.
Lots of times. And when you read it and you get an understanding of it, you mean to say that everything in this Bible is wrong?
Everything? No.
Just to certain parts. You're picking out certain parts that you finally believe.
Everybody does that.
Are you saying you believe every word in the Bible and that we should live by every word? That it's all the okay?
Oh, let's lead into my 613 commandments.
Well,
do you believe?
When your children are unruly, do you take them to the edge of town and stone them?
No, I would.
Because that's in the Bible. That's an order. It's an order. If your children are unruly, you're to take them to the edge of town and stone them.
It says in there, spare the rod, spoil the child.
No, you got to read the whole Bible, my brother. You can't just come in with the verse you like.
No,
you just told me that all of it's valid. You just told me that all of it is valid and binding. And when I point you to a verse in Leviticus that says you're supposed to stone unruly children to death, you come up with an alternate verse of spare the rod, spoil the child. You don't believe that it's all true and orders from God?
I believe that. I believe my Bible wholeheartedly.
So why don't you stone your children at the edge of town?
If I take my child out and stone him, I'll be locked up.
But the Bible tells
but
you
the
you're
Bible
supposed to do
commands it.
See,
I can quote you the verse from the Bible where it commands it.
We're not twisting it around. It's very, very clear. And it's in the same patch of verses that talks about how homosexuality is an abomination. So if you're not willing to live up to the stone your children at the edge of town, why on earth should you believe that any other passage is correct?
Okay, I agree with you about homosexuality is an abomination. Okay,
I didn't say that. Your Bible does. So you're agreeing with your Bible.
I agree on that.
So you're willing to pick. You're willing to pick that verse. You're willing to pick that verse as valid and dismiss another verse as invalid because it's uncomfortable for you. Congratulations. If you keep working that way, you'll find that you can develop your own secular morality, your own ethics, which actually justify what you feel is right and wrong, and you're not bound by some stupid dogma that was written thousands of years ago by some backward roamers who thought they were led around by a pillar of fire at night and that, that manna appeared from heaven to feed them. I mean, if you look through, Keryn's got this list of 613 commandments because it doesn't just stop at 10. The Bible is full of specific orders on things, and it's not just Old Testament stuff, it's New Testament as well. If you're going to pick and choose, then you cannot claim that you believe the entire Bible to be literally from God and binding. That's just a fact.
On that note, I'm going to say goodbye and I'll pray for y'all. Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks. I mean, I'd be more than willing to shake your hand too and have a talk with you too. But the point is that if you're going to hold conflicting beliefs, if you say, I believe the entire Bible is from God and binding, but except for this verse about stoning children, and, except for this verse about women cutting their hair or being unclean during their period or any other number of things. I mean, it's just, there's a ridiculous number of laws in there.
Yeah, I've got some like break the neck of a calf by the river valley following an unsolved murder from Deuteronomy 21:4.
All those episodes of Murder, She Wrote could have been solved so quickly.
Just by breaking the neck of a whole bunch of calves. Calves that, might I add, didn't actually do anything wrong.
Well, yeah. There's also this thing about slaughtering a bunch of birds and placing them down in a specific thing. I mean, that's in your Bible. People call up and have you read the Bible? Well, yeah, I've read it. I was a fundamentalist Christian for 20 some odd years. I've read it, and odds are I probably know more about it than you do.
Ooh, I like this part about the king must not have too much silver and gold from Deuteronomy 17:17.
Yeah.
We should tell Dick Cheney that.
There's some good, hail to the king. There's some good laws. I mean, there's some perfectly reasonable things, but seriously, I realize that a lot of people believe that the Bible's the Word of God because that's what everybody's been telling you for all these years, and it's hard to buck that trend.
Everybody picks and chooses what they believe, no matter how much you say you don't. My neighbor believes that you have to follow the laws of kashrut, that you have to keep kosher. You are not allowed to eat shellfish or pig or anything that is not killed in a sacrificial manner. And when I saw this movie, The Da Vinci Code, it showed, I mean, I'm not saying, that's all based on facts, but there are groups of people who believe that you have to chastise yourself with these metal chains that inflict you with the inflictions of Jesus so that you can remember his pains. And so, there was one character in this movie that would wrap metal thorns around his wrist to remember the thorns that Jesus had to wear. There are people that practice the Bible that deliberately, but most people don't do that.
Yeah, most
and
people
even those people don't practice
choosing.
Most of it. Everybody picks and chooses.
And you don't even have to stay within Christianity to see that kind of things. A lot of shamanistic mythical religions, they have all kinds of piercings or hanging up on hooks, and in other words, and other efforts towards reaching some kind of spiritual enlightenment. And I think they're just as moronic. It's not that. It's like a minute ago when I asked if he had any evidence, and then he doesn't have any evidence of that specifically, but I am the evidence. It's like claiming that. Ray Comfort and others have claimed if you just look around the world, all you need are eyes that can see and a brain that works. Well, frankly, that's freaking insulting because it's so fundamentally not true. They're making claims about distinguishing design from non-design, and in the very same breath claiming that it's all designed. It's the same thing as when they're picking and choosing out of the Bible of, I like this verse, or, Jesus came and set a whole new covenant. No, he didn't. Not a jot or tittle of the law was supposed to be changed, if Jesus even existed, according to what the words that are ascribed to him, and it was just a fulfillment of of the sacrificial covenant. But anyway, way off track.
Okay. No, not really.
Let's go on to, is it Desi?
Yes.
Hey, Desi, how you doing?
How you doing? All right. The question that I want to ask is, if there was a God, why does He let kids starve? A lot of people, millions of people die at one time. If there was really a God,
I'll give you two answers that you will always, always hear. The first one is because God has a plan, and the second one is because God works in mysterious ways.
Wouldn't that make him if it was a God, wouldn't that make him a selfish God?
Yeah, and you know, while I hit on the Old Testament a lot, and a lot of people in the Christian religion particularly ignore it, I do it for a couple reasons. And one, that it's supposedly still valid according to the New Testament, and two, it's the Jewish Bible. So if you take a look at the type of God that you've got in there, while you could make a case that he's a vicious megalomaniacal monster, wow, it was good. In reality, it's just reflects the type of people who were around at that time. You know, it's a harsh, cruel world. And if you imagine a few thousand years ago, when you're wandering around and food's scarce and you're in wars over land, and you don't have today's modern conveniences, and you don't have the knowledge that we've gained in those thousands of years, it's a very harsh world. And that sort of world where bad things are going to happen to everybody. And so if you're believing in a God and worshiping in a God, expecting some kind of good benefit, and you see bad things happen, this question has come up forever. You know, why are these bad things happening to us good people who've tried to follow? And it's if you read through the Old Testament, whenever something went right, God, and anything good happened, God was credited with it. Anything that was bad that happened, it was because the Jews had sinned, and God was no longer looking favorably upon them. So nothing's ever God's fault. It's just disobedience and sin. But in the grand scheme of things, when you look around the world, you see good and bad things happen to good people, and good and bad things happen to bad people at pretty much the same rate.
And basically, if you look at the scope of his punishments in relation to the crimes that were committed, it sounds like it pretty much all boils down to God has an ego.
Yeah. Oh, that punishment for that's death, yeah.
Because essentially, if you're telling me that even though I am a social worker, I make piddling amounts of money, barely able to pay my bills, and certainly not able to pay off my student loans to get the degree that I have, so that I can spend my living, so that I can spend every day of my life doing goodwill unto others professionally, as my living. And in my evening time, I volunteer and I try and do, good stuff in my spare time and go to, pride rallies and support other people who are, being pushed down by the man. If you're telling me that despite everything I do in my daily life, because I have not, knelt down and said 3 times whatever it says at the back of a Chick Tract book, I accept Jesus Christ as my personal Lord and Savior. Because I have not said that God is going to condemn me to an eternity of torment, then I would tell you that God has a pretty damn big ego.
The other problem is that I have said that, and so have a number of other people, on more than one occasion, and believed it and practiced along those lines. You're talking about if there is a God and he's benevolent at all, why are children go hungry? Why are all these things? We talked about prayer a couple weeks ago in the nonprofits, and the fact that if you read what the Bible says specifically about prayer, and not to keep harping on Christianity, but it's just my field of focus. The Bible says specifically that wherever 2 or more of you are gathered in my name, there I am, and anything you ask, I'll give it to you, blah, blah, blah. And then when you start testing prayer, of does it actually give you what you ask for, you find out that it doesn't. It has there's no answered prayers. It's just chance, just like everything else. Things happen or they don't happen. But these people who claim that prayer is effective, who are true believers, then it seems to me that if there were 2 true believers anywhere on the planet who actually prayed for the same thing, we'd see that. Bible's pretty clear about that. If you ask for it in good faith and there's 2 of you in agreement, you're going to get it. which tells me that there aren't two true Christians anywhere on the planet, or there haven't been two true Christians who've gotten together to pray for world peace and into hunger and into poverty and into disease, any of these other things. Obviously, they either haven't prayed for it, or there's no two true Christians, or, my personal favorite, there's no God. Just because you think that, you lost your car keys and prayed and you found your car keys, that God answered that prayer, that doesn't make it so.
And people are always throwing around this statement, there are no atheists in foxholes.
Yeah.
But I happen to know there are frequently no Christians in foxholes either. As strong as people want to believe in God, I had a patient, I'm a hospice social worker, and I had a patient pass away last week, and it was such a struggle for her. She'd been on our care about a year. She was extremely religious. God was pretty much all she could talk about, but she was not willing to accept his plan. I'm an atheist, but I understand the value of religion in people's lives, and for whatever benefit it is for them, I try to use God to their advantage as much as I can. So she just could not understand why God was punishing her. She just prayed and prayed and prayed and prayed and prayed and was in total denial about her condition, about her decline, about the fact that she was never going to go home again. And when I would try and confront her with these issues, her response was pretty much, well, that just gives me a whole bunch more that I have to pray about. I'm just going to pray even harder now, And I'd start and try and say things like, well, but, there's probably a reason that God's put you in this position that you're in now. He's probably doing it on purpose. Because she was, she'd tell me she was one of these people that was a single mother of 5 children during the Depression. But God always helped her through all these things. And so I started saying things like, well, God probably is giving you this disabling condition because he knows that you're not going to rest on your own, and you've worked for other people all your life, and now it's your time to let people take care of you. She still wouldn't even listen to that. And then when she stopped being able to eat, it was, well, God's probably trying to tell you that he wants you to be with him pretty soon. She wouldn't accept that either. She would just keep on praying, and she had total faith that God was going to help her get better. And when God didn't help her get better and she kept getting worse, she couldn't understand why God wasn't answering her prayers. And the fact is, if you don't believe that God has a plan for you and that there's a reason God's doing all this, then I don't think that you really believe, I think that she died not truly believing, not putting her faith in God.
There may be, and Daniel Dennett said this in interviews before, he doesn't believe there's that many people who actually believe in God. Most of them just believe in belief.
Right.
But, Desi, we dropped you. I did that, my fault. If you had something else, you're free to call back in. Also, if you don't get through on the telephones today, you can email tv@atheist-community.org with any questions or feedback or suggestions or whatever. And as a reminder, Desi and any other atheist-friendly people, you're welcome to join us after the show at Threadgills on Riverside. We'll be there somewhere between 6:30, 6:45. Come on down and meet folks who make this show happen, and some of the other ACA members as well. I know we have good crowds down there and good food. So let's see. And somehow or another we skipped over Jason. So Jason, you there?
Yeah. Hi,
you doing?
Matt. This is Jason from California.
How you doing, man?
Hi.
How are you doing, buddy?
Oh, I'm kind of glad we skipped you. At least you got to stay on hold to hear the show live for a change.
That's right, exactly. As you know, I'm not watching the show, so I'm not quite sure who your co-host is there.
It's Keryn.
Okay, hi, Karen. How are you today?
Good. How are you doing?
Doing fine. Actually, if you'd have picked me up on before that other call, you would have had a perfect segue because you ended your last comments about I forget the guy's name, Ray from Way of the Master.
Yeah, Ray Comfort.
Yeah, well, I don't know if you or anybody else told you, but Fox News had Kirk Cameron on yesterday.
Yeah, Kirk in the Way of the Master series, they talk about him being an atheist, but he was, a devout atheist. But it wasn't really based on anything. I heard on Hellbound Ali, which you might have heard too, Ray said that Kirk's revelation, which converted him from atheism to Christianity, I kid you not, was, what if I'm wrong? That was it. That's all it took. He's supposed to be this devout atheist, and the revelation that takes him from atheism to Christianity is, ooh, what if I'm wrong?
Well, he was interviewed last night. I can't remember which program it was on Fox News, and basically the subject was there was a movie that was put out, I guess, recently called Against the Giants or something like that.
Facing the Giants.
Yes, and it's basically a Christian oriented type movie, and it ended up getting a PG rating.
Yep.
And
there's a bunch of people
they were communicating back and forth about how can that be? What has happened to this society such that now that we put out a movie like this, it's a PG rating because of the Christian material may be offensive to other people, and that's the only reason why it got PG. Otherwise, it would have got a G rating. And now they're basically putting Christianity on the same level as pornography and sex and violence and everything else that a PG movie otherwise would have. So,
well, I don't know if PG movies would have pornography, but
yeah,
we're getting there.
But anyways, it's just hilarious to watch those guys, and I'm really looking forward to seeing some spoofs on their various other.
There's really, I had this news item and a couple comments on it. There's really two different camps. There's some Christians who are outraged that their wholesome Christian G movie got a PG rating because essentially it was proselytizing. And there's another camp that says, great, if it gets a PG rating, more people will take it seriously and not think it's a G-rated kids movie. And that'll get the message out to more. And the thing that both of them are forgetting is that PG doesn't restrict anything. It's just a suggestion that parents review the material. And what some of these people are really getting mad about is that the Motion Picture Association of America had enough respect for the diverse beliefs within the United States that they decided, oh my gosh, all this movie is one big advertisement for Christianity. Let's respect other people's beliefs and let parents review this before they unwittingly send their kids, who may be Hindus or atheists or Muslims or Baptists, Baptists. Sorry, folks. Buddhists. And by that I mean my folks. But, before they send them off to that movie to hear this particular message about Jesus, it's something that's eminently reasonable and doesn't damage the thing at all. And these people are up in arms. I mean, some of the posts I saw are just absurd.
I think that's awesome.
One guy called it the ghettoizing of Christianity.
And speaking of
no other group is treated like this.
Speaking of Kirk Cameron movies, I had a coworker the other day that clued me into a bumper sticker that I really, really want to track down. The bumper sticker reads, "In case of rapture, can I have your car?"
Oh, it's great. That is great.
We have a bumper sticker which was actually available at that we had at the booth at the Gay Pride Festival yesterday, which was "Rapture is a world without religious nuts."
Perfect. Well, what I'd like to see is you've seen those little things that you stick on the fish, where the fish is eating another fish, and the one fish is truth, and the other one is Darwin.
Yeah.
The fish that's getting ate is Darwin by the truth fish. Uh-huh. I'd love to see some of those produced where it's the other way around, and basically.
I will tell you one that is the kind of the other way around, but it's sort of a little bit not something you'd ever want to put on your car. I got one from my dad, and he hides it in a drawer somewhere. It is a Darwin fish that is straddling a creation fish, and it's called a procreation fish.
Excellent. I love it.
That's awesome.
But what's scary is that when I see stuff like with Cameron being on Fox News, you do realize that goes all the way up to Murdoch, the owner of Fox.
Well, I don't think he called Kirk personally to come on.
No.
But the approval of that sort of message and everything else, yeah, I'm sure.
They're creating nothing but a gigantic Christian network empire, and he's got quite a bit of money and energy and effort apparently to actually continue to drive that message home, and it's just a scary thought to see it being done that way, but.
Definitely. One of the things that bothers me the most is that I had started working up a rebuttal to the Way of the Master, and I'll get around to finishing it at some point. But one of the primary things I was going to focus on was the banana argument. And then I find out, well, he's gone and conceded the banana argument completely. But the thing is that it's still part of the video, and his message still gets out exactly the same as it always has to every believer. And there's no believer out there who's going to know that Ray ever said, "Okay, I was wrong. You can have the banana." But
You can have the banana.
All right, well, I'll let you guys get on some more calls. Appreciate everything, Matt.
thanks a lot, Jason. Thanks for calling in.
Take care, Karen.
We got, is it Matthew?
Yes, that's correct.
How you doing?
Doing pretty well. How about yourself?
Not bad.
All right. Just wanted to quickly say that I really appreciate y'all's show. I think the views y'all represent are pretty unique in this country and, well, probably the world. And I enjoy your show every day. And I had a question about if y'all have any recommendations for any like atheist-friendly publications or books. That people can read.
That's might be something we can. Is there anything like that on our website? A list of books and if you go to infidels.org in the library section there, tons of good stuff by old stuff by Ingersoll, etc. But there's also new stuff there as well.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of what specifically are you looking for?
Well, I wouldn't mind getting some literature I can recommend to friends who are maybe searching for a system of beliefs.
In that case, if they're of a particular Christian religion and are thinking of switching, then Dan Barker's Losing Faith in Faith is a good choice. But if you want to keep it cheap and easy, I definitely recommend infidels.org/library. There are tons and tons of articles, which over the course of the several years that I was, on the way from being a fundamentalist Christian towards accepting, my atheism, that was essential. Reading everything that Robert Greene Ingersoll has ever written, Voltaire, Thomas Paine, a lot of these original free thought.
Well, and what is it? Free Thought Foundation or the something for free inquiry. They have magazines that you can subscribe to.
American Atheist also has a mailer that includes books. Check out infidels.org, and also you can if you're looking for specifics, send us an email. And with all the folks that are on the TV show, there's going to be a lot of good recommendations for favorite books for different topics, and we'll see what we can do about getting an answer.
Well, I really appreciate that, and once again, y'all are doing a great job. And Karen, I hope that someday I'll meet a woman as lovely and as intelligent as you.
Thank you. Bless
y'all have a nice day.
Bless you for saying
And if only the camera would have been on her when you said it. Thanks a lot, Matthew. And,
I need more fan mail.
Yeah.
Hello.
Hey,
Hi.
Mike, you there?
Yeah.
How you doing, Mike?
Hey, I got Stan. Well, I wanted to draw, in my mind, the reason why Christians tend to go freak out whenever you kind of paint them. They paint themselves into a corner with their, well, I believe in, but I know God's real because I believe in it. They never fail 100% of the time to just never offer any proof why there's a God, just that they believe it. And I'm drawing an allegory between the belief in Santa Claus and when you're a kid. Generally in America, you're taught to be good because that way Santa Claus will bring you gifts. And this is what happens up until about the time you're 7 or 8. Oh God, I hope there's no kids watching. I'm sorry, but my gosh. But anyway, yeah. Well, okay, I'll go.
I'm pretty sure I've killed Santa on the show once or twice myself.
Okay. But you go through this period of kind of depression and anger and stuff for a little bit when you find out there isn't. Then you get over it, and there's that period of malaise where you go, God, why did they lie to me? But the basic, you've kind of been trained to be good, but the morals were kind of instilled in you. So I'm not making an argument either way, but I think the thing with Christianity is when you're young and ignorant and you're kind of believing, you're taught the morals and the good rules of Christianity or any religion to be kind to other people, which I think is the main good argument of a religion, for religion, is that. But then as you get older, I'm kind of like, I'm almost 50 now, and I'm starting to realize maybe, I was raised a Christian, and I got all the good lessons put into me, but I'm starting to think maybe there isn't a God, or I'm kind of on the fence about it. And
You're thinking that generally the religious claims may be the equivalent of fairy tales for adults.
Right.
Morality tales.
I'm going to disagree, though. I mean, because it sounds to me like what you're saying is that, at least if people, ever eventually stop believing in God, then what religion did was instill morals in them. Is that right?
Yeah, but I'm not I'm just suggesting, I'm kind of go ahead.
That's not true. It's not true, and I'll tell you why. My example I usually like to use is there are two ways you can raise a kid. You can raise a kid so that when you set rules, you explain to them why they should follow those rules. Like, well, you shouldn't leave the refrigerator open because it'll cost so much money when, the refrigerator keeps trying to cool itself, and, then we'll go broke. You shouldn't leave all the lights on because it'll raise up the electric bills. You shouldn't leave the door open because then the house will get hot. You shouldn't do drugs because you might get all these diseases and illness and blah, blah, blah. You shouldn't have sex because of this reason, blah, 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 blah. Or you could be the kind of parent that says you shouldn't do this, that, or the other because I said so. What's going to happen with the one is when they grow up, they're going to understand why all these things are bad. They're going to go out into the community and they're going to follow all the rules. What's going to happen with the other is they're going to go out into the community and think, at last, freedom. I don't have to obey my parents anymore because I'm not living under their house. They're going to do everything wrong until they figure out for themselves why those things are actually wrong. It's the same with Christianity. One big problem that Christians have with atheists is they can't figure out why, if you weren't terrified of the wrath of God, why you wouldn't go out and rape and steal and pillage and kill. Because I'm guessing that's the first thing they'd do if they lost God. Right. Not to that extreme, but I happen to know a doctor who asked me this question, and I said, "You're a doctor. Don't you think, healing and taking care of, would you kill people if you lost God?" And he said, "Hell yeah." I was like, oh God.
And I got a list on the wall.
And I happen to know a girl recently who was, maybe about 21 years old, who was a devout Christian before she met me, although her friends don't see it that way. She lost God, and she just went off the deep end. She turned all super mega slutty. She started wearing skanky clothes and going to bars and making out with pretty much any random stranger. No, I won't give you her name or her phone number.
But you can say hi to her because she might be watching.
Hi. And she had previously been the kind of person who, wasn't going to have sex before she got married. Now she's long since surpassed that. It's pretty much the same thing. The only reason she had not to do all that stuff was because God said it was bad. So when she lost God, she went out and she did everything sinful.
Okay, well, my point was, I'm coming from the standpoint of somebody who was raised in an Episcopalian, I kind of a kind Christian.
Right.
Where that's why I made the Santa Claus thing, because it wasn't that you were going to get punished by Santa Claus. You were just not going to get good favors from him. You're not going to get, the love from him. So I'm just saying it was kind of an artificial way to instill behavior. Not that you were going to go thrown to hell, because I was never taught this hell thing. It really still amazes me today that people believe that they're going to get, that they're believing.
Because the Bible is surprisingly silent about hell. There's a few verses that you can interpret if you choose to interpret them a certain way. But the general picture of hell that most people have of specific punishments for specific things, that comes a lot from, Dante, and from a heretical book called The Apocalypse of Peter, which was lost for hundreds of years. But the ideas in The Apocalypse of Peter managed to sift their way through society anyway. That's how important that book was.
I'd say it pretty much comes a lot from Kirk Cameron.
Yeah, Kirk.
Anyway, I was just saying that the emptiness of not that you feel when they say, oh, maybe there isn't a God, but you say, well, I don't have to. Now I'm going to get the love feeling, or that emptiness is going to.
Right.
And I think that's one thing that frightens the hell out of Christians that makes them turn on you, is because you're the messenger, and they're killing the messenger. That look, you don't have to go nuts for this stuff. And I don't know if you ever watched some of these evangelists like Jack Van Impe. And,
oh, yeah.
And I would say he's probably a little bit more benevolent than a lot of them. But because he's just kind of entertaining. He's not. I think he's. Well, have you seen him lately going off on the?
I haven't seen him lately, but I am familiar.
He's all into about the rapture now. We're all going to die. It's going to happen. It's right around the corner, according to him. So,
And,
stock up your cellar.
I have a patient
And if,
that would
if
agree
ever
with
a
that.
year went by that I didn't hear from them that this was the year of the rapture, that's when I'd start worrying.
Well, I think the Da Vinci Code really fit. They get dressed up for every show now. I watch all those shows. Let's show somebody.
Yeah,
Anyway,
in part-
thanks a lot, you guys.
Before you go, in part, I agree with what Keryn was saying, although I think that there's a lot more subtleties with regard to the ins and out and the hows of religion. Specifically, you could read Pascal Boyer's Religion Explained, which covers a lot of things, a lot of ground that way. I don't want to make it sound, I was a fundamentalist Christian and was studying in the hopes of attending seminary and eventually becoming a preacher when I realized, I don't believe any of this stuff anymore. But I don't want to make it sound like it was easy. There's a very real sensation of loss of today I have a soul, tomorrow I don't have a soul. Today my soul is destined for the good place, and tomorrow I don't have that. And, oh, by the way, in addition to not having it, I have people who think that I do still have the soul, but now it's going to another place. There's a lot of experience of loss, and the key for me of working through that, and I was never distraught or depressed. It was depressed. Sorry, it was a long process of thinking about things and the implications of things. And one of the things that I realized fairly early on. Did we lose you?
No, I'm here.
Okay. One of the things that I realized very very early on was that if my current beliefs are reasonable and true, and in fact I don't have a soul, then I never had a soul, and I actually haven't lost anything anyway. What I've done is gained a perspective on life, gained an appreciation for the world I live in, rather than this just being a place to wipe my feet while I wait for the resurrection. Now when I go out and look at the world and look at people and look at babies and flowers and whatever, I can look at them and appreciate them for what they are, and not add in this idea of, oh, isn't that flower pretty, therefore God is wonderful to have given us this pretty flower. No, the flower's just pretty on its own. And that sort of appreciation, it's freedom.
In a way, you did go on to become a preacher, though.
Yeah.
You became a televatheist.
Televatheist. I just talk a lot.
I told you guys I think that you ought to declare yourselves a religion so you can get by any kind of persecution from. But I know you stuck that down. I understand your.
Yeah, I have strong. There are atheists who agree with you, and that's a topic that we would probably touch on.
If you said freedom of religion, you'd say, "Well, this is my religion, so I'm free." It's in case
I'm of the opinion that
freedom. You later.
I'm of the opinion that freedom of religion necessarily includes freedom from religion, because if you have the true freedom to believe whatever you want, that has to include not believing what anybody else believes.
Well, I made the choice. The similarity between the choice of music being played at work, my choice sometimes was silence.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was my song preference, was silence for 10 minutes. Anyway, thanks a lot, you guys.
Thanks a lot, Mike. Yeah, we talked about those issues a lot, and I'm pretty sure we'll hit on that stuff again. The thing is that there's absolutely no reason to want to declare atheism a religion, because the courts have made it clear that as far as First Amendment protections are concerned, atheism is covered, and any belief or lack of belief is covered. The only thing
For now.
Well, sure. If they chuck it all out and start over, then I'll be moving to Spain. But But the only benefit to actually declaring atheism a religion, which I know Michael Dundow and some others are in favor of, is, tax things and other issues along those. And I'm not that. It's not worth it to me. There's no word for people who don't believe in unicorns. So it's already a little difficult to have a word that for people who don't believe in a God. To go and try and spin it as a religion is kind of against my position, at least. But
You would be a unicornist.
yeah, and like I mentioned before, the day that whether or not I believe in a unicorn is used as some kind of character judgment and determines whether or not I get equal rights, then there will be a unicornist, and there will be an A Unicornist Experience TV show. But we got Richard.
Yeah, I just had a couple of simple questions.
Ooh, you might turn the TV down.
Okay.
But before I ask the question, I'd like you to have somebody out there who's kind of biblically, can answer the question. Don't have some knucklehead come in and answer. I want to know, how can you get perfection, have complete perfection in the beginning, or before God created the heavens and earth and all that, he was completely perfect. But then out of nowhere, the devil can just create himself and pollute God's entire creation.
Well, Christianity doesn't hold that the devil created himself.
Well, I mean, but that's what Christians will tell you.
No, they won't. Christianity doesn't hold the devil created himself. The devil was created by God.
Right. But
in Isaiah, God admits to creating evil as well.
Right. So out of perfection, his perfection was good, right?
Yeah.
It was purely good. There was no room for evil, because evil didn't exist in his perfection, in his perfect state.
Absolutely.
So why either God, for some reason, corrupted his own creation for whatever reason, and nobody explains that.
Yeah, it's a contradiction. The way you're phrasing it may be a bit awkward to what they're actually claiming.
Philosophically, you could say that God would have created evil so that we could respect goodness and truly appreciate it.
Wow.
But why would you have to respect it if the only thing that existed was good?
You should watch an episode of Lois and Clark with a character named Tempest who comes from the future, where he says everything is perfect and it is just so boring.
Right, and I was going to get to that next. I mean, what's the end game? If you start out perfect and everybody's good, even the devil was good, his perfect angels were good, and you intend to get back to that ultimately after you go through the 10,000 years or however long that period is. If you're going to end up right back where you left off, why would you even start down that road?
Exactly.
I mean, all you did is left a lot of people in hell.
Yeah, especially if there is a God and the Christian God is correct, and he knows what's going to happen in the future, then he knows that after his rapture and he's got his fan club up there in heaven, that he has essentially created a whole bunch of souls, knowing in advance that they were going to be in hell.
Right.
I mean, what kind of God is that?
And what was the point? So you just got a lot of people tortured forever. So that's why I wanted somebody out there who's, I know what you were going to say, because you're logical, but I want to hear what some of these Bible, and not to be mean to them, but I'm just looking for the logic in their thinking.
No, it's
and also
absolutely.
got one more question. That's all I need the rest of your time.
Go ahead.
How do they do the things they do, knowing that God is everywhere watching them at all times? They don't do it in front of a judge. They don't do it in front of a cop. They don't do it in front of their mother. They don't do it in front of their husbands and wives or children. But they'll do it knowing God is watching all the while. In other words, they have they're aware they're doing something wrong.
Yeah, if Christians make up 80% of the population, they make up 80% of the crime too.
Yeah, I mean, the logic's not there, but yet they'll say, well, I'll be forgiven. It's like, how many times you going to be forgiven for insulting him right in front of his own, his omnipotent face? That's just a joke almost.
Yeah.
The way a lot of people live, just be good for the sake of being good. Don't do it, hope you're going to get into heaven or whatever.
Yeah, the hypocrisy, quite frankly, and I've thought about this and talked about it before, although I don't know if I hit it on this show, is that I don't deny the possibility that there could potentially be something that qualifies as a God. I don't have any good reason to believe there is, but it's possible, because, well, anything's possible. What I'd really like to have happen is because in my view, a perfectly reasonable God would, if he existed and there were some conditions for an afterlife, I could stand right next to the preacher, and for living an honest life and accepting things based on evidence and rational thought, I get into heaven. But the guy who honestly believed that God was watching him all the time and decided to cheat on his taxes and cheat on his wife and, all these other little things, all of a sudden, whoops, sorry, you're not the person you thought you were.
That's scary. And also I want to say, what was it? I kind of lost my thought there. Well, I'll let you go ahead. You got other callers. But,
okay.
Yeah, if you could have somebody call in and answer that, how somebody gets flawed or how the existence gets flawed if it didn't exist anywhere. I just want to hear them answer that, because that always disturbs me with their answers.
I'd love to hear that, and honestly, Richard, I'll make a prediction now. We'll never hear a satisfactory answer to that contradiction.
I agree. All right, have a good day.
Thanks a lot. As a reminder to Richard and anybody else, we'll be going to Thread Guilds. The show's over in about 10 minutes or so. 6 o'clock. We get down there around 6:30, 6:45. It's on Riverside. It's a chance to come down, meet the cast and crew, some of the people behind the scenes, as well as ACA folks. Any atheist or atheist-friendly people are welcome to join us. If you're coming down to preach or proselytize, you're probably not going to get through on the phones today, but you can tune in again next week. We're live every Sunday starting at 4:30, and there's the TV at atheist-community.org is the email address you can send questions to if you don't get through today. We got a couple people left. Joe Zamecki.
Howdy, Keryn.
Hey, buddy.
Hey, how you doing?
Joe, for those of you who don't know, is a board member of the ACA and is responsible, and this is not going to show up at all good because it's white, but he's responsible for our newsletter. They're available online at the website in electronic format, but there's this last month's newsletter. I don't know if we can get a shot at all.
Yes, thank you, and that is enjoyable for me to do. It's a lot of work, too. But I heard y'all talking about what Christians say sometimes about atheists and morals, and it got me to thinking about something I say routinely when I hear this. A lot of Christians say that if they were to lose their religion, their faith in God, they would immediately become immoral because, by their definition, morals have to come from God, and so if they lose their moral originator, then they've lost their morals somehow. And I would always respond by saying, that really speaks more to you, the person, than the religion, because you've made a decision. If you lose your religion for whatever reason, it doesn't really matter why, right? It's what you do afterwards and how you behave, because we atheists know this, and I hope most religionists do, but some don't. But that is that everybody should be held responsible for their own actions if they are of sound mind and body and consenting adults. We have got a responsibility to behave in our society regardless of whether we're religious or not. And so if someone loses their God belief one day and then becomes immoral the next, I'd say that's really a problem with them. And as we can see in the news, religion really doesn't stop a lot of immoral behavior. It seems to inspire it.
Yeah, this claim that a religious nation somehow is a healthy nation, that we've reduced crime and we've promoted everything else, it's fundamentally not true. We've seen the actual data that shows that there's no correlation, and in fact a negative correlation between religiosity and social health. This myth of Sam Harris wrote a really good article, which CFI has posted at one of their daughter sites, I believe. It's a short read. It's something about, I think the title is The Myth of a Religious Morality or Religion as a Foundation of Morality. Great article, nice and short, and it just completely shatters this claim that you need a God or a religion or a belief in any of this in order to have some kind of morality or moral code or ethics or anything. It's just really absurd.
Well, also on the note of on the idea of articles, I wanted to mention one that was written by a rabbi about atheists and atheism, and it is sad because it's kind of a negative one. Rabbi Avi Shafron in New York wrote an article called "The Indignity of Atheism," and in which he basically said that all of the terrible, horrible things that a person can do, we atheists don't mind that happening at all as a philosophy, a negative philosophy limitation somehow on our morals.
Yeah.
And by definition, and I emailed him and I said, you should spend a day or two with me and my family and friends and find out that we're good moral people. In fact,
we're just hypocritical atheists. We're not real atheists.
Hopefully, pretty soon, in the next upcoming season, Michael, what's his name, from 30 Days is going to be having an episode on that.
Morgan Spurlock.
Yeah.
And FX. Yes, they put an atheist in a family of Christians, a Christian home for 30 days apparently, and we're going to see the results. That'll be interesting.
So that will be very interesting.
But it is just so sad to hear that another study recently said that atheists are very, very unpopular in America, and it's sad because I'm meeting so many wonderful people hanging out with the atheist community of Austin and other atheist groups across our country, and we're good people, and it's a bad rap. Mm-hmm. So anyway, thanks for having the show once again. You're doing a great job, and I'll continue watching.
Thanks, Joe.
Y'all have
there's a quote, I think it's from, and I'm not going to get it right, but I'll get the spirit of it, from Douglas Adams, where he says, we could be having a conversation about politics or belief, any strong beliefs along those lines, and have a good debate between two people. But the instant that the debate turns to any religious belief, all of a sudden conversation needs to stop, because that is sacred and we can't talk about that and discuss it. And those people who disagree with this core fundamental religious-based belief of mine, they're just not worthy of spending any time with. And this mischaracterization I mean, you've got people completely mischaracterizing what atheism is, and then making accusations about, you've got Ray Comfort with this idea of strong atheism where you have to be omniscient. Now you've got a rabbi who's making an argument for basically a nihilistic, self-defeatist approach to morality, which, whoops, God's gone, so now we can do everything. So atheists must want us to run around and kill and rape and torture. No, sorry, no, I can't say that. The torture word kind of spun me in a side direction.
Okay.
But
Oh, yeah. Okay. That.
we got Paul. How you doing?
What's up?
How you doing, Paul?
Hello?
Hi.
Hello.
Hello?
Hi.
Oh, what's up?
We're here.
I just wanted to say that, yeah, it doesn't make any sense that this higher being would conduct an experiment if he knew the outcome, because that's why a scientist conducts an experiment, to find an outcome to see if it's going to differ from expected results or actual results. It's just, why have the experiment if you don't know, if you already know what's going to happen?
Yeah. There's one Christian apologist kind of cop-out to that, which is they claim that omniscience doesn't include strict knowledge of the future. But, once you start making those kinds of concessions of, well, yeah, God doesn't quite know everything, or God isn't quite all-powerful, you start hacking it away and you say, okay, well then, how powerful does something have to be in order for it to be, qualify as a God? Or how much does something have to know before it qualifies as a God? It was much easier when they could just say everything.
Yeah. And I called in one time before and asked about, or wanted to ask something about the abortion topic. And abortion, yes, does kill life, but not sentient life. Skin cells die all the time. Do we weep over that?
Yeah.
I do. My hair follicles have started dying, and I shed a couple tears over that.
Yeah.
Well, I can't make that judgment on you, but...
Come on, brother.
But yeah, I mean, cells are alive. They die all the time. If it's not a sentient person with a conscious mind and thoughts of its own to make its own decisions, then it's just a bunch of cells that are alive, and for all practical purposes, they die like any other cells, and what makes them so significant over any other cell group?
Yeah, we talked about a couple weeks ago, and even beside the cell thing, if you actually believe in God, and you believe that abortion is wrong, then God's the person you should be the most mad at, because spontaneous abortions and miscarriage vastly overwhelm any voluntary abortion.
Sure. Well, actually, no, that brings up an interesting question for me. I've never thought about this before. Killing, in most people's minds, is widely accepted as okay, as long as it's not a human. Okay. We all know I'm a vegan, so I'm wondering, before an embryo is a sentient being, can it still be defined as human?
Well, it is human in origin. It's one of the big issues is, in some ways, often personhood. Is at what point does this organism, which is human in origin, become an actual thinking, breathing, living entity with rights?
Mm-hmm.
And
well, that would be the sentient part.
Well, that's not even necessarily where we define it right now. They just picked a week because that's generally, or by then, you're close to fully formed.
Right.
It doesn't happen all at once, so it's not just a decisive categorical answer that we can judge everything by. People are different from person to person sometimes,
and
too.
Situation to situation, which, like in Jewish law, life begins at birth. And everything prior to that first breath is, less valuable than the mother who's carrying the child. There's definitely no easy answer on issues like that, and people draw lines in all kinds of places. But I don't mean to spiral off on abortion with 1 minute left in the show, because that would just really be bad.
Yeah, that's a whole topic for a show.
We're about out of time.
Yeah, but thanks for the question.
Thanks, Paul.
Sure.
Whoops. And you got 15 seconds, Nicole?
Hi. I just wanted to call real quick and just say that I'm a Christian, and I really like watching y'all show because you bring up some good points that I don't think as Christians we really go back and get answers to. get answers to.
I got to cut you off. You're going to have to call us back. I only got like 5 seconds left. I'm sorry. Thanks a lot for calling. Thanks everybody to tune in. We'll be back again next week. You can get the audio on the website. Don't forget to come out to Thread Guilds this evening if you're in town. And we'll see you next week. Thanks.
Thanks for watching.